So we're back for another episode of the Grind and Grow Show. Today we have on Chris Maddox, one of the high-end flippers here in Greenville. Right? I mean, is that
nice.
the proper way to introduce you?
Hey, whatever works, man. Whatever works.
How would you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm just a guy like you that really loves real estate investing and problem solving, and just figuring out ways, whether it's creative or cash or connecting with someone to pass a deal along, whatever it is.
Nice.
I mean, I think that's kind of the main thing for most of us.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So how did you end up getting into real estate investing, and how long ago was that?
Yeah, so I think the short version of my story would be I was actually a hairstylist for like 30 years.
Okay.
And so I've always been interested in like business. I've always been interested in education, like training and trying to how can I be better and learn more and like be teachable. Like I want to learn, I want to be teachable, meaning to someone else. Like I like passing information along, because I kind of feel like, what's the use of all that knowledge if you're not sharing it, and helping other people grow, and whatever that field is. So, I did that. I had a couple of salons for like 14 years. It's a creative field. It's fun. There's a lot of like, woo, kind of like real estate,
Yeah.
That's just how it goes though. But probably 5 years ago, I got into the real estate investing world, and that was via coming across information like you can do deals without your own money. And I was like, well, that sounds cool, but it also sounds kind of scammy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're sort of like, I don't really understand that, and but I kind of dove in. I kind of have the personality that's like all in or not in, So it was really interesting, and it was kind of a hook for me, that initial, you don't have to have any money or much money to be able to get into a deal. And so as I started, learning about that, that there are people that have money who don't want to do the work, they like real estate, so it's almost like, like we dump a puzzle out in front of us, and we're getting pieces and we're sort of fitting them together.
Yeah.
And so, the more that I learned, the more that I loved it and enjoyed it. And I feel like I kind of get pulled towards things that are challenging, like, I don't know if it just keeps you thinking and keeps you moving and learning. And I just enjoy that, so that was like 5 years ago. And I kind of fell into like flipping houses more. I've moved a pretty good bit. I've done a lot of my own renovations. I've done new builds, like spec home stuff. I've done a custom home. So I think that kind of made sense, and I wasn't really like scared of it. Like, oh my God, what's going to happen if we tear that wall down? Like I was kind of like, well, that would be awesome. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
And so, that I kind of just went into the flipping arena, first. So that's just kind of where I've been. I have some rentals now, like long-term rentals. I've got a rental that's like a room rental, like a boarding house that I do. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at like right now, and kind of what sort of led me here. I think it was maybe the creativity.
Yeah.
And it's one of those fields that you're not really gonna learn everything. You can,
Yeah.
So there's a big runway in front of you to keep moving forward and growing. And I think the more that we connect, with each other, that makes it awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that all of your real estate investing has just been here in the upstate?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. I think about, I've met tons of people that are virtual. They have things all over the country.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's awesome. I think maybe I'm just not quite there, like mindset wise. I kind of like to be able to go over to the project, if I need to. I don't know. I maybe it's just sort of, we all kind of have some layer of security and safety, and so, if I can drive, 30 minutes or an hour to something, that feels pretty okay, but when I think about 3 states over, I'm kind of like, if there's a fire to put out, you can't really go jump on it right away. You got to rely on someone,
right.
And so, I mean, I could see it being a possibility, but right now I feel like, I'm not trying to be do 150 deals a year person. I'm probably more gravitated towards like lifestyle business, to where, I can get things paid for. You know, I'm not a big materialistic person. I don't need like a Porsche and like, you know, $400 shoes and like, you know, a $5,000, 5,000 square foot mansion and all that stuff. You know,
Yeah.
you know, I'm kind of a normal dude.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And so, you know, I want to be able to, you know, make some money. I want to be able to save some and, you know, keep investing, buying some properties. You know, I think about my kids. You know, I'd love to have some things to leave behind for them, you know. So, you know, I don't know, I guess it's more of a lifestyle business. You know, I don't mind being in it a little bit and participating. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So have you always been here in the upstate?
Like as far as like lived?
Yeah, lived,
Oh,
yeah.
So I grew up in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta till I was about 30. And I moved from there down to Sarasota, Tampa area of Florida. Lived there for a couple years. And then when my wife at the time and I started talking about kids, you know, we were kind of just down there on our own. You know, we weren't really close to much family and stuff. And so Greenville was sort of in the middle of Atlanta and closer towards Charlotte where she was more from. And so, you know, we came up here and visited Greenville, and that was maybe like 2002, somewhere around there, 3. And, you know, we were just kind of like, oh, this is a pretty cool place.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
It just felt like it had a good vibe. And, you know, so we made the move up here, and here we are.
Okay. So you met your wife down in Sarasota?
No, that's a whole nother podcast.
Oh, geez.
No, we met early on, like kind of high school ages. I went with one of my friends from Atlanta to like Myrtle Beach area for a summer, and you know, worked as a lifeguard on the beach there. And so, you know, the lifeguard service has a big pool of people. You know, some are lifeguards, some, you know, work in the warehouses, some rent out like the beach the beach furniture and the chairs and stuff like that, and some push the lemonade stands and all that. You know, there's a whole anyway. So, you know, we both work for the same lifeguard service, and so that summer, you know, we kind of met and kept in touch. You know, went back home after the summer was over, and went back the next year, you know, to do it again. And we kind of got together, you know, back then. And you know, it was, I mean, we were pretty young, so you're kind of on and off a little bit for a few years. And then she ended up moving to Atlanta a couple of years later. And then, you know, we kind of locked it down from there. So
Locked it down.
Locked it down. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, that was cool.
Cool. So you started talking about kids and everything, moved back to Greenville. So you obviously have some kids now. You have some kids at Clemson, right?
Yeah, they're in Clemson, and you know, they're doing. You know, I've been fortunate with the kids. You know, they've been great grades. You know, they're good people. You know, we haven't gotten a lot of the principal phone calls going, hey, they're like, you know, doing all this stupid stuff at school. You know, I mean, and so. You know, we feel pretty fortunate, you know, for that. And they love doing a lot of stuff that we do, like working out and
awesome.
Just going outside and hanging around, you know, like being adventurous and, you know, I don't know. They're good.
That's good. That's good. Okay. So they never got in trouble in school. Did you ever get in trouble in school?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was definitely, you know, I wouldn't say I wasn't a troublemaker. I don't want to put it like that. You know, I was probably a little more on the sneaky side. You know, I mean, like in school, I was kind of a little more under the radar. You know, I wasn't, you know, trying to be like the, you know, the flashy person. You know, or I wasn't. I don't know. I just kind of showed up, did my thing, and left. You know, in school. You know, I did average. You know, I mean, you know, I didn't do poorly. I did average to okay, and I think that, I don't know, you know, I feel like, and this might still be true, I feel like a lot of times I kind of hang back and sort of observe, you know, and then, you know, and then kind of maybe I'm going to get into the situation, like in the room, you know, of the party or whatever. In school, I probably was a little bit more like hang back, not too, you know, like upfront about stuff, you know. And then I don't know if it was just a confidence thing or what, you know. So anyway, yeah, I mean, school was school, you know, for me. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I wasn't like, I didn't love it. I was just like, well, let's just get through it. We had to do it, you know. And then, and when I got in college, you know, I was kind of in and out for a few years, and you know, that just didn't turn out to be my thing. I'm not like anti-college. I think it's great for some people, and some people it's just not the path. You know, and I think naturally I'm really like a self-motivated, driven person. Like if there's a thing, you know, that I like I'll put the time and the energy and spend money to learn about it and go to classes and do, you know, like I'm really always excited about learning, you know. So I think if you have that personality, you know, like you don't necessarily have to go to the extended education like college. Yeah. But you can do a lot of extended education on your own. Yes. You know, in that field. Maybe if you're a surgeon, you need college. Yeah. But like real estate investing, for instance, I mean, we kind of do our own college. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's super important, you know, so.
Yeah, I agree with you on that level. I feel like most entrepreneurs kind of just end up figuring it out, right? Kind of untamed, for the lack of a better term. Yeah. And in school, I think you and I are kind of similarly alike in that matter. Like, kind of just did my thing. That was actually where my first little business venture started. You remember fidget spinners?
Oh, yeah, the little thing you would spin.
Yeah, you spin it.
Oh, yeah. It was like a little windmill-looking thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, listen, we had several of those around the house.
Yeah, so when those first became a thing, there was like a Washington, D.C. field trip that all these kids went to. I didn't go. But they came back, like a bunch of them came back with fidget spinners. So I was like, this is the opportunity. I ordered 200 of them from China.
Nice.
It costed them like $2 a pop. Yeah. I sold them for $10 to $15 a pop in the school. Right. So 80% margins.
Yeah, right.
And then
unbeatable.
Yeah, it was great. Like I came home one day with like $400 in cash in
like,
6th grade. It was. I was like, I'm rich. This is great.
Yeah.
And then I sold like my last fidget spinner one day. Then I was called to the principal's office. Oh. They're like, he's selling stuff in school. The only phone call my parents got was because I was selling stuff in school, making a profit.
The principal wants his taxes.
Yeah, I was like, I only made $10. I sold 10 of them, and I made $1 off each one, and that was it. Right. And then he's like, all right, well, you can't be doing that. And I was like, okay, no worries.
It's funny how the mind of an entrepreneur, I think, naturally works. Yeah. Because I remember being in probably early high school, maybe middle school, you know, age. And I would go to my local convenience store, and I would buy the whole boxes of candy off the racks, you know, and I would put them in my backpack, and I would go to school, and, you know, so maybe you paid $5 for the box, you know, and you get a dozen bars or whatever, you know, and then I would go and sell them, for, you know, whatever, maybe $2 or something.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, whatever it
Even
was.
better margins.
Yeah, I mean, just the point is the same thing, you know, it's like, you know, you buy, you know, on the low side, buy volume, you get a better deal. Yep. And then you can go out and flip it to the public, you know, and so it's funny. Fidget spinners, candy bars, same concept though, right? So, you know, it's funny, I guess, at an early age, like a lot of us just, you know, you just kind of start thinking like that, you know, and so now it's just houses instead of candy bars and fidget spinners.
Bigger spreads.
So, yeah, it's cool. It's fun. I don't know.
Yeah. So, back to your point about college, though. What did you go to school for?
You know, I just went.
Oh, okay.
There wasn't necessarily a path. I wasn't sure, you know. Okay. And I feel like so many kids do the same thing. Like they might sign up, you know, for a certain, you know, like degree, but you know, they don't use it, or they end up, you know, switching to something different, you know, or maybe not finishing school, you know, like what I did. And so it's so difficult, you know, to like pinpoint something, you know, like specifically, especially when you're like, you know, I guess you're more like 17, trying to figure out, if I'm gonna go to college, what am I gonna shoot for the rest of my life? Hell if I know.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
So you know, it kind of turned into just taking classes, you know, just spending money, and then, you know, I'm like, well, this just didn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. You know, I mean, if I'm willing to put time in and spend money, then maybe I should just figure it out and then go put all that effort into whatever that thing is. You know. Right. So. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. I think it's kind of a crazy system that we have. Like, you're letting, to your point, a 17-year-old figure out what they want to do with their life. They can borrow money against that, you know, and that is the only type of loan that is unforgivable for filing bankruptcy. Like, if terrible things are to happen, it's like the only type of unforgivable loan through all that. So you're letting a 17-year-old kid make a $50,000 mistake, if not more.
Yeah, right. 50,000.
And you can't get rid of that debt.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know. I wish that there was way more heavy-duty financial learning earlier in our life, you know.
Taxes, what are those?
Taxes, budgets, just investments, what is interest rate, what does a balance of a loan mean? What is, just all kind, there's so much intricacy to it, that we go out and we just do stuff, and you put things on credit cards or whatever, you accumulate debt because it's just sort of the American way, I don't want to wait to be able to drive, a BMW like I want it today. So I'm willing to make $800 payments a month, to make that happen, and so I think it's just our learning has clouded being able to make better judgments on spending and things like that.
Do you think that happens as you grow older or as you learn? Well, I guess that's part of learning the skill. Learning the skill, you grow older, and then you have that knowledge of what's going to happen to make that decision. Do you think that is something that can be taught at a younger age?
For sure. I talk to my kids about it all the time already.
Okay.
So I'm sure it's a combination of who you're around, who are your people, and what are they like, what are they doing. So if you're around all the people that don't have any knowledge about things like that, you're probably not gonna really learn it unless you happen to meet someone, but if you're around maybe people that are on a different page, maybe they're high learners, they're always investigating different things, and then you're probably more likely to learn something about it sooner, that way. So it's definitely like your peer surrounding group probably. What's the saying, your 5 closest people, the 5 people you spend the most time with, you're probably
the sum of,
you're the sum of that, so I think just early on in life, the more that you can make choices for those types of thoughts, who what am I interested in, who how do I want to grow, kind of find that niche of people and be around them.
That's good. So when you were in your younger years, did you ever go through a phase of reading all these self-help books, all these entrepreneurship books, or did you just kind of something just clicked and you're like, let's go do this?
Yeah, I think I really wasn't a big reader, until later in life. I enjoy reading about it now. All of let's say in the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, I've probably read more than previously ever, So I was probably a more just kind of jump into it and figure it out and try to talk to people and and do it that way, whatever the thing was at the time.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. Okay. So getting into business and getting into the more entrepreneurship space, what ultimately led you to make that kind of jump? Because it's a very risky thing that you do. You're like, let's go do this thing, with no guarantee of making any type of money at all, and you're just like, we're gonna do it.
Yep. So I think if you're the person who is willing to put the energy into doing something, whether it's your time or your money, whatever, just if you're that person, that will go for it, I think if you don't believe big enough, to bet on yourself, no one else is going to do it. No one else is going to bet on you. You need to be able to bet on yourself, and so I feel like I grew my confidence level enough to be able to jump into things, and try them out, and with the understanding of it's only failure if you quit. If you take the situation and it didn't work out, but you kind of put it in your tool belt as a learning experience, it's like you're really building yourself into something. It may not be that one situation that didn't work out, but you're expanding your growth, you're learning, so you are heading in a direction of growth, which I guess I always try to think of it more like that. If something didn't work out, you can either beat yourself up and quit, or you can go, well, okay, so how do I pivot, and keep that top level goal over here. You know, I'm just, instead of going like this, I'm kind of going, you know, a little side to side to get there. But I think that's kind of the natural progression. You know, like that. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. You know, I just felt like, when I say I don't worry about like failure, of course I do, but I mean, not to the point where it's going to hold me back.
Right.
You know, like that. So I just believe, I believe like your drive for the success, like has to be stronger than your fear of failure.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if your focus is more like, I'm a visual person. So, you know, when I think of like the scale where you can put things on, you know, like you put your fear of failure and your want to succeed for whatever it is, you know, like how do they offset each other? So you've got to be stronger on the, you know, I want to figure it out.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So when it sounds like you're the type of guy, like if you're going to go skydiving or the plane's getting ready to crash, right?
I did skydive.
Oh, you did skydive?
Yes, that was awesome.
So you're like, all right, let's put on the parachute, or you're getting ready to jump out of the plane, right? And you're like, let's just go. And then you'll put on the parachute on the way down rather than just, you know, putting the parachute on and then jumping. Like, you make it? All right, let's go. Sounds like you're the guy that's like, we'll put it on the way down. Let's just go.
I guess it depends on the situation. I mean, you try to learn and mitigate risk, you know, at some point. But, you know, like we're never going to have it 100% like figured out or solved, you know? So you've got to, like, we're all going to have a certain amount that we're okay with knowing, and then you make the jump, you know? So, like, you know, I feel like if I know, I don't know, you know, 50, 75%, you know, of what's going on, like, I feel good enough to, like, kind of make a move, you know, because we're never going to, the people that, like, try to figure out everything are the people that don't actually ever
do anything,
take action.
Yeah.
You know, they're just spinning they're spinning their wheels, you know, they're just in the hamster wheel of, you know, trying to, like, okay, well, if I do this and that happens, then what's my steps? And if that, you know, they just burn all their energy up just like that. And so, you know, I feel like the learning really comes in the action taking, you know, so you have to just get going at some point.
Like riding a bike.
Like riding a bike, I mean, you have to be okay that you're going to fall over.
Yeah.
You know, if you're just too scared of falling over, you're never going to get on and ride and have fun.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
That's true.
We want to have fun.
Yeah, I want to have fun like now.
Oh, yeah, right?
Know?
I mean, listen, how much fun is this?
It is fun. It's fun. I like doing this.
Yeah.
So that brings me to another question. Do you see as like the process and the journey of entrepreneurship as like part of the fun, or do you see it's more towards the little carrot that you're going after as the fun? Do you think it's more part of enjoying the process or enjoying the reward for doing the work?
Yeah. My opinion is if you're not having fun along the way, like it probably feels a lot more burdensome. Like it's, you know, it's like a heavy load you're carrying because your focus is not on what you're doing, you know, in the learning and all, you know, there's lots of good little nuggets along the way, you know, but if you don't look down to pick them up, if you're just always looking over there, you know, does that make sense?
Yeah,
you know? I don't know. I feel like you've got to like see the good along the way, you know, accept things that don't work out, but you know, don't let them derail you, you know. So
that's fair. So how do you deal with derails then? Or just never get derailed in the first place?
Well, it's impossible for it not to happen.
Yeah,
you know,
we are in real estate.
Yeah. So what I've come to discover for myself is, you know, doing things solo is just really difficult. You know, and so the more people like yourself that you can connect to, you know, you can make a phone call or get together and like, you know, hash out like how to get through this problem, or maybe. Like everything's been done. Like all of the real estate stuff has been done. Yeah. So like it's more like the who, not how. Like we don't have to figure out how to do everything. It's really more about like finding the person and connecting with them. You know, then you could like do something together maybe. Yeah. And then, you know, you brought someone else in, you know, who like maybe got to make some money, do a deal with you. You got to learn how to handle that process or that situation, you know, so it's really more like connecting, you know, with people that you can to find out how how do I get through this difficulty? I feel like I'm at a roadblock, but someone's done it. Someone's gotten through it, so who is that? And so going and finding the person, and then going, hey, can we work together to, make a solution?
There you go. Okay. So you're looking for that person that is like, already done it, helping you solve the problem that you may currently have. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, everything has been like done, to some degree. So there's a person who did it. And so just because I don't understand it or I haven't done it, doesn't mean that I can't do it. I just have to go and find the help, and generally it's the person. I mean, you can probably figure it out on your own, but how much time are you going to spend, finding out like what's the answer, like how do I fix this thing? How do I find this person? How do I create a solution, for this person? Like you're going to spend so much time figuring it out when all you got to do is go, hey, Caleb, I know that, we talked before and you did this thing and, that's where I'm at. I'm having a problem. I don't understand it, like, can we like hook up and, like you walk me through it and maybe we can figure out how we can do it together. You can explain it to me, you can tell me how you had success with it. I mean, it's so much faster, so I'm just more about that. I'm like an efficiency person.
Yeah. Kind of like, how you were like the other week, hey, can you run this list for me?
Oh, right.
Yeah, and we did it, and you already had an appointment from it.
Yeah.
And Jennifer is our AI assistant, by the way. But yeah, who not how I like. I have the book sitting on my shelf. I haven't read it yet.
Oh, let's not read it last year. It's awesome. I love it. I was like, it was a page turner for me.
Right now, I'm like trying to wrap my head around the blue ocean strategy. Have you read that one?
No.
So it's about, finding your spot in the marketplace, kind of like how Uber did with taxis and whatnot. They created their whole new blue market until Lyft and all these other apps came out on the same thing. But Uber was the pioneer. It's essentially, I want to figure out how I can create my own blue ocean as a wholesaler, and as an investor. How can I open it up? Because ultimately, wholesaling is just an exit strategy. And it's still real estate investing, just part of an acquisitions team and all that. So, but yeah, something I've been trying to ponder more on.
Yeah, that's cool, man. You got to find your niche and get in there.
That's it. Pioneer the marketplace.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So with the real estate investing that you're doing now, how are you kind of, appealing to, those buyers that are buying your houses? What is like your spot in the marketplace?
I feel like your success comes from a few things. One is like being able to listen to what's needed. When you're talking to someone that is considering selling their house, you want to hear the things that they want and need from like the situation, and then be able to have multiple strategies or solutions to share with them, of how we can maybe accomplish that, and let them, see transparency, in dealing with each other, and just, I don't know. I feel like if we have each other's best interest, like in mind, and we're just transparent about things, like it comes across better, when you're with people, and so, you have to learn, lots of different strategies to be able to offer that to someone, because a lot of times just the cash offer is not the best way.
Yeah. And most of the times it's not.
Yeah. And so, but I had an appointment this morning before I was here, and I laid it out with the person that was interested in selling. I'm like, listen, a cash offer is generally going to be, the lowest, it's the easiest, but it's going to be the lowest because it actually costs investors the most money, even though it's a lower offer. So I kind of explained a little bit about a cash offer versus like maybe creative financing, where maybe it's broken up into payments or something, but we can pay more. Anyway, not to get too deep on stuff like that, but I think that being able to hear the needs of someone, whether it's like us or a seller or whatever, and be able to kind of deliver back, kind of what you hear, and here are some avenues that maybe we can go down, that would be great for both of us.
Okay. And most of that is in the creative finance space? Is that what you try to shoot for now?
You know, it's really just based on, like, you know, what does the person need? You know, if they're like, I have to sell this house and get out of here in like 3 weeks, like I can't, I don't have the money to fix anything up, I can't put it on the market, I've got a job transfer, I've got to go. You know, my wife is like staring at me every day going, what are we going to do? You know, I mean, cash might be the way, you know, I mean, it might just be the way. And, you know, on their side, they would just have to understand, for the speed and ease of the transaction, that's just it. That's the way to go. You know, but if someone like people I'm going to talk to after us today, they have some time, you know, they're not hard pressed to have to leave in 2 weeks, you know, and so they're looking for a little more out of the sale of their house, you know, and so, you know, we're going to talk about what amount is needed to move and put down on the new house and things like that, you know, like maybe we can accommodate that, and then maybe we can do the balance of, you know, say the equity in payments or something like that. So that is easier to handle for me to be able to pay more. They get more, but, you know, we both kind of get a win out of it. You know, I only have to make a payments, you know, for a time frame to pay that off, you know, and then they get enough to move and be able to get out of the situation. They don't have to clean anything up, go on the market, fix stuff, you know, whatever, you know, so it's kind of a win for both of us. So if we can come to an agreement on what does that number look like, you know, that's kind of where we're going to go today.
Awesome.
So yeah, I think it's just kind of, it's almost, the conversation just has to be honest and organic, I think, you know. I mean, if you're like holding something back, you know, like because you don't want to show one of your cards, you know, I don't know. It's kind of a karma thing, maybe, you know. I feel like it's going to get you down the road.
yeah, for sure. So when you're talking with these people, how are you getting to that point in that conversation? Like, how are you finding these deals essentially that might be good for you?
So I'm a pretty big like network person. So the deal that I was just speaking about, like another local investor that I'm in a group with, he's you know, he called me and he's like, hey, I'm pretty busy, I can't really take on another deal right now, and so he just passed it along to me. And so he put me in touch with the agent who was helping them sell the house, because they were interested in seeing if there were any other opportunities, non-traditional, that they could explore, you know. And so that's how that one happened. So, you know, it's just for me, it's more networking, you know, getting to know, like you find a lot of deals. So me talking to you, you know, people that I'm in groups with, you know, that, you know, we kind of trade ideas, we trade deals, or we partner up on stuff, you know, things like that, you know, to get the job done, you know.
Gotcha. Okay. And to piggyback off of what you were saying about an agent helping them sell the house, have you seen, like, with the current market conditions and where that's at, have you seen how many properties are just sitting on the market right now and not moving?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say the majority of them. You know? I mean, I've got 5 properties I'm trying to sell right now, and I mean, they're various areas, various price points, you know, various conditions in the house, from like brand new to, you know, kind of an okay, maybe it would be good for a rental type house. And I mean, they're all sitting, you know, and it's just driving me nuts. But it's just the market is just cyclical, you know, and so we're just in that part of the cycle right now. So it's a buyer's market, you know, so things are sitting. There's more negotiation going on from the seller side, you know, like we want to pay a little less, or have you fix more things up, or have some kind of concession or something. There's just more of that that's going on, as opposed to like 2 years ago when you could just whisper to a neighbor you were thinking about selling your house, and then there are 5 people at your door going, I'll give you $50,000 more than you want. You know, it's just totally opposite now, you know. So I think we notice stuff like that on the investor agent side, and like the homeowner, it takes a while for that to trickle down to them, because there's still a lot of people that are like, I want $1 million for my house, and you're like, well, it's worth $250, so we might not quite, you know, be anyway. So
they bought it for a bag of peanuts and $10 back in 1910.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, the market just dictates, you know, like what we can buy and sell for, you know, and so, you know, I mean, you want to show up with data and facts and things, you know, in addition to trying to hear what they want and need, you know. And so you kind of like lay all that out, like we were mentioning earlier, having a puzzle, you want to sort of share all that stuff. I'm not trying to make someone say yes. I'm just trying to give them as much information, that I can to make a decision, and work through that with them.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I think I got an email today from Bigger Pockets, which is like a dying company anyways. They're like, this is like been the biggest fallout rate of purchase and sale agreements for residential, like in a hot minute. Do you think we're going to have another market crash like we did in 2008?
I don't really think so. Things are going to kind of go the way they're going to go, and so I probably don't stress too much about that. I think the best that we can do is just, on our side of things, just play a conservative game, with when we're talking about trying to buy or fix a house up or sell, like just if we stay on the conservative side, try not to get in over your head with, too many properties or the numbers don't need to be too big or, like per project, things like that, it'll be helpful. So I guess, don't be over leveraged, like in like a bad way. So, if something does take a turn like that, you can kind of weather the storm to say, but it's also why we always have certain margins built into the deal, so they can shrink or expand a little bit as needed, when we're doing things. So is there going to be a market crash? I don't know. I mean, there's all kind of wild stuff going on with, Trump being our newer president now, but I think that what I like is, I mean, he's a business person.
Yep.
And so I think that people get a knee-jerk freak-out action, because it's like he kind of jumps in, just shakes things up, I think, and just kind of sees what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And he's probably thinking, 3 or 4 steps down the road.
Yeah.
Causing reaction, or what cause and effect.
Yeah.
So he's causing some things to happen, and the initial effect, probably just freaks people out, and it's maybe not the end goal. So you have to be able to kind of have a cool head, ride things out a little bit, and just go, okay, maybe this is not how it's going to be exactly. Like maybe it's for a bigger, better purpose.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm kind of just riding the wave the best I can.
Okay. Yeah, there's been quite a bit of shaking ups since February, and that whole transition happened, like the whole Elon thing and all that. Have you seen what's been happening with traditional media in that sense?
No.
So yeah, I don't want to dive in deep into that, but apparently they're not friends anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. That can happen in business, but as long as they keep their heads together on, whatever the goal is.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Fair enough. Awesome. Okay. So jumping to wrap it back into business here, would you say that you would want your younger self to get started sooner?
Oh my God, all day long.
Okay.
All day long. Okay. I mean, when I think about just from like a rental perspective, for instance, if you were able to acquire just one rental when you were, say, 20, say 25, just when you're a little sooner in life,
okay,
right? By the time it's paid off, whether you do a 15, 20, 30-year loan, whatever, let's just say on the longer side, 30, so you get it at 25, and now you're 55, it's paid off, you've got appreciation on top of that, I mean, what a great retirement, like piece that is, so you could either sell it and maybe you'd have a big chunk of money to invest to do something with, or you could just keep renting it, and just have all that cash flow coming to you. I mean, it's a great avenue, like when you're younger. That's just one idea, being like I'm 53, almost 54, buying a rental now and trying to wait 20 or 30 years makes a little less sense, so my pathway is a little different than trying to buy and own a bunch of rentals, because for me, if you don't have all of the money to buy the house where all of the cash flow comes back to you each month, you have maybe you burr it, and so you have a mortgage on it.
Yeah.
So maybe your cash flow is $200, $300, $400, but the property taxes are going to eat that up. So then you're just,
Yeah.
So banking on appreciation later in life, doesn't seem like it's the right way for me. I'd rather, maybe try it to sell or finance it or something, so then you're getting some monthly payment, but you don't have to deal with all the other stuff of ownership,
Right.
As an example. Maybe you can use a property to, you can create a note and then trade it, so that gets into the creative side. So you can use properties and, sell and trade things around together. So there's different avenues I think that, you can keep moving forward with, I always enjoy flipping, but that's active income versus passive. So, I kind of am working on both sides of it. You want something that just comes in, and then I don't mind being out there creating it also. So, yeah. But yes is the short answer. Earlier in life, I think if someone gets into it, even a little bit, it can be terrific. Yeah.
All right, I got 2 questions. One, is there such thing as passive income?
Is there passive income? Well, I would say if there is passive income, meaning 100% you don't have to do anything, I don't know if I would say yes. Even if you have a note, for instance, where all you do is collect, at some point down the road, there could be, a situation where you're not getting paid, then you have to go deal with the situation. Or maybe, if you're a note trader, then you're kind of having to analyze other deals and, and see where you're at on your payments and things and trade and things like that. So, there's probably always at least some minimal, amount of work. Maybe if maybe you could be passive if you're, you're in like a syndication or something where you're part of, just say 10 people that went in on like a apartment building or something, and so someone's running that, and you're truly just kind of sitting back collecting a
Silent partner type thing.
Yeah, I guess there could be passive income. I feel like the majority of things there's a little bit of work in there, but it's not heavy duty. It's not like going to work 40 hours a week,
right,
like active. So probably so in some situations, but overall you're probably always doing a little something. Yeah.
Okay. And then my second question, going back to that original point, if you had 60 seconds to tell your younger self what to do to help you get to, where you're trying to go now, what would you tell them?
I would definitely say, go find the people, and surround yourself with those people. If we're talking about me trying to get my younger self into the real estate game, yeah, I would start saying, learn about like financing and business earlier. I would say surround yourself, with the right people, who are in that arena. And I would just say pay attention to, like things that have to do with real estate in general, like just kind of start earlier, investigating and seeing, like market trends and like and notice areas of where I was living, and what do they look like? How do they appreciate, or are there things that are up and coming? And so, networking, being in the groups, it has been like probably the biggest thing for me. So I'm part of a couple mastermind groups, that are paid. I pay for them, per year, but, being around the people that are like way ahead of you, that have already done so much stuff, it's like it's like you're the sponge getting thrown into the water, and you're able to suck up and learn all of that stuff. So I just think that's kind of where I would go for my talking to my younger self, like
get in the
be the sponge, get in the arena.
What has been like the riskiest move you've ever taken?
The riskiest thing, probably. So every deal is not perfect. It doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
Let's. Not to like be like the sugarcoat crew. You know what I mean? Like where everything is just magical all the time, because it's not. It's difficult and it has challenges, and you don't always make money. I've lost money on a couple deals. And it stings, you don't want it to happen, but, you keep moving, you keep moving forward. So, I did one of my first few deals. I did a partnership with an agent and a contractor. So like I was able to find the money for the deal. So, and I even vetted these people and had pretty good responses back, so I was like, okay, I kind of did some due diligence on the people and the property and everything. And then I had, someone that I knew for a while who, was willing to fund the deal. And so, I did a partnership, and we went into the property, and the short version is it just was turned sour, and the contractors were, not paying people that had done work, and just it just turned into a big mess. And so you just can't forecast stuff like that. Sometimes it just happens. And it was probably a mix of, they were taking off, like getting bit busier, and just took on more than they could handle. And I know on the contractor side, a lot of times, it gets into like you get a payment but you got to go pay this person with it, so there's a lot of shuffling your money around, and trying to keep up with that. And so, I think that was part of the situation. And so, we actually, ended up, like, the house got taken back by the owner. So it was like, was just a big mess, but I mean, what a huge learning opportunity it was, I mean, everyone got out, of the deal, but it was just, it went on like that for too long, and you try to make things work, and sometimes you just try to make them work too long. And, just that was one of the first deals that I did, though. And so it was like a big crash and burn, and, but, you can either quit, right? And you can be like, oh, wow, I don't want to deal with that anymore. But I mean, I've had way more, I mean, it's like 10%, of crappy stuff. But you can't focus on that. You have to learn from it and understand it, and don't do it again. But the majority of things have been good. I mean, it's been fun. Made some money, made a lot more, friends and acquaintance people in different groups you belong to, traveled. There's more good. But you have to know and be okay with that some stuff just isn't going to work out sometimes, and be okay. You got to just take it in and learn and try to not let it happen again.
Try to not
let it happen again.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's probably, I would say worst thing that's happened.
Okay. All right. And how do you like stay motivated to continue to push forward?
Yeah. Well, so like earlier in our conversation when I was just saying I'm kind of naturally, if I'm interested in something, like it just kind of stays on my mind, so I'm always just kind of thinking about it, thinking how can I be better, who can I connect with, to do deals or learn from. I mean, I have people that reach out to me, that I get to try to teach and share some things that I've learned, back to them. So, you're just kind of engulfed in this world of all that stuff. And so if you enjoy it and you're having fun with it, there's always something, I mean, there's always something going on, I mean, I'll be trying to go to bed at night and my brain just won't click off. I'm just thinking about, things. And so I'll like whip out my notepad or my phone or something. I'll try to make some notes, about, so it's kind of just happens. Like I don't have to try to be motivated about it. It's just always in my brain, like, like marbles banging around.
Okay. So you don't really have those like rock bottom moments where you're like, shit, or fuck, or like.
Well, I mean, yeah, when you have a stretch, like of no deals. I mean, you definitely get down, you're doing all the things, but there's nothing happening, so yeah, for sure. I mean, you're definitely like, get a little down and, like you start thinking, like I'll start thinking, I'm missing something, I haven't learned enough, or I haven't, met, enough of the right people, or, my verbiage isn't good enough when I'm talking to a seller, or what, I mean, yeah, it's so easy to get down on yourself, but, like my ending thought after the dip, I try to go, okay, listen, it's just that. It's just, I'm in a little dip, it's okay. It's not the end of the road. It's like the failure thing. Like if you quit in the dip, you failed. But if you know that, I'm going to just keep plugging away, talk to another person, learn another strategy, or expand on things that I know, I mean, you'll, at some point, you'll get back up. So it's just like we were talking about the real estate cycle, This is the same thing. We all try to create consistency, but you know, it's there's always some up and down. And the people that I know that, you know, they're doing literally like hundreds of deals in 1 year, they say the same thing. You know, I mean, it's just up and down. It's up and down. You know, there's probably just bigger swings, you know, like with them, you know. And so I think if you can mindset, how about that? There's the word, mindset. Like if you can have a strong mindset, then you'll be okay. You can go through your down cycles, but talk yourself up, you know, and understand this is down is not out. It's just down right now, you know. And so, you know, it's always like, you know, if you've ever been lost driving, like navigating, and you're like, I don't know where the hell I'm at, but you know, you make one turn and you're like, oh, okay, I'm here. You know, it's always like that. You just, if you're always like, I can be one thing away, one call, you know, one private lender, you know, one deal, one whatever it is, you know, it can be so close. And if you stop, you don't see that, you don't get there. So, you know, you got to have a strong mindset and be okay with the down, but, you know, kind of be fueled by potential and possibilities better.
I like that. That is good.
Yeah. If
you had, you know, you have obviously a lot more life experience than I do. I'm not calling you old. I'm just saying you have more than I do. What for anyone that is watching, and with the years of experience that you have, what is like the best piece of advice you could give someone that is watching?
To just take action, and that action could be meeting a person, it could be reading a book. You know, it could be knocking on the door down the street where you see a house and you're like, I mean, I see like deferred maintenance and I would like to own that. Like, go knock on the door and talk to the person, you know? I mean, just be genuine and take action. Just take a step, see what happens, pivot, take another step, see what happens, you know? I mean, talking to people, reading books, you know, watching videos and things like that is all useful knowledge, but until you actually start doing the things like get out and go to a group, try to, you know, see if you can follow along with a person maybe who, you know, who has a rehab project and you can go look at, ask questions, you know, knocking on some doors to talk to people about their house. And, you know, I mean, the actual physical action step of doing some stuff, you know, is gonna learn you way more, you know. I mean, you're gonna get to a certain point by just reading and talking, and then you're gonna be kind of stuck like at that spot. You'll know a lot of stuff, but until you actually put it into action and do it, you know, it's gonna be meaningless. Like, well, what's the purpose of just keep learning all this stuff if you're not gonna apply it?
That is like an awesome nugget.
Yeah. You gotta be an action person. You have to be a learn and apply person, not just learn. Like you're not going to get the benefit out of all the time and energy that you spent, or money, if you went to classes and things. I mean, that's all great. It's all super great, and you need it. But if you don't apply it, it's pointless to me.
That's awesome. All right. And ladies and gentlemen, that has been the Grind and Growth Show. I think this is episode 6 or 7.
Very nice.
Chris Maddox. And that's a wrap.
Wrap it
Thanks
up.
for coming out, sir.
All right, brother.